Information about the world of running, inspiration to fuel passion and excellence, and ideas for making connections and finding community. You're listening to A to Z Running. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of the Olympic running results here on the A to Z Running podcast. I'm Andi.
And I am Zach.
Thank you so much for listening, and we're going to get to some exciting results here in a minute.
Big showdowns, anticipated rivalries, and unexpected showings amongst many other exciting things. The games did not disappoint track fans by any means. So be sure, before you do anything else, to stop. Go to AtoZrunning.com, click the word follow, and be in the know. And then go to places like YouTube, social media, podcast platforms, and all the other places where you consume content, and follow and subscribe. A to Z Running.
So thank you to all of you who have, and we appreciate conversations. We appreciate all the info that you send our way to make our show even better. Todd Buckingham gave us a little slice of information that we did not know for this upcoming episode, so keep listening.
Absolutely, that and all of it coming at you right now.
We're going to hit it off with some of the most exciting parts of track and field, and that is world records. So, Zach, take us through the 3 world records that were set in track and field.
3 new world records set in the games themselves, and 2 of the 3 were absolutely predictable and possibly caused by some of those rivalries mentioned earlier. So both of them happen to be in the same event, one in the women's, one in the men's, in the 400-meter hurdles. Not an event we typically would cover. However, world records are what they are. So as you know, if you've been following track, both of the world records for the women's and the men's 400-meter hurdles were broken earlier this summer. And not only were they both broken, but as it happens, 2 people in each event were very nearly running the same times all season. And so as a consequence, this was an exciting matchup in both races. So let's start with the women's. Sydney McLaughlin against countrywoman, of USA, against countrywoman Delilah Muhammad, also of USA. And so in the United States Olympic trials, it was terribly exciting when Sydney broke the world record the first time this season. It was Muhammad's world record she broke, and as a consequence, made everyone just think the Olympics are going to be so much better when they have a rematch at the world stage. And so they did that, and they did it to perfection.
The top 3 finishes, right?
Yes, well, both of them running in gold and silver positions, and both under the previous world record that McLaughlin set at the United States trials. So they did, and it was McLaughlin, then Muhammad for gold, then silver, just like in the trials, and just both looking incredible. And then in third place, it was Bull, who had been running some pretty impressive times, would have been the world record if not for both of those in front of her and McLaughlin's race at the U.S. trials. So those 3 times are the only times faster than what third place bronze medal ran in the Olympics. Very exciting.
And I love how our 2 U.S. women have been very vocal about how they've helped one another to greater success and reach greater heights. And that's the kind of sportsmanship that I love to see in track and field. And I think it just elevates everyone. So when we listen to interviews like this, I think that we can hear from them how the sport can be a community-based thing even at the highest level.
Indeed, and not quite in the same nature. In the men's 400-meter hurdles, the rivalry was also quite exciting. United States' Rai Benjamin, who was very nearly, almost broke the world record in the U.S. trials. And then Norway's Karsten Warholm broke the world record in a Diamond League race shortly after the U.S. trials, and then did it again in the Olympics for the gold medal. Just incredible. And afterwards tried to rip his shirt off, but the zipper got stuck.
Unsuccessfully.
So he didn't successfully rip his shirt off. It was almost really cool. And we'll just leave it at that.
You know what? If you're a world record holder, you make things cool. It doesn't matter what he does. It's cool after he gets a world record.
Well, there was a third world record at the games, and it was actually in the triple jump, an event we haven't ever mentioned and won't probably mention again unless something like this happens
again. And it's not that we don't love it, guys. We love these events we are not covering on the normal here, but this is a very niche podcast that mostly talks about distance running. So don't be offended if your favorite events don't get covered here on the A to Z Running podcast. If you like the 200 or the 100 or the triple jump.
Yeah, which is simply because your favorite events, therefore, are not as good. And so that's why we don't talk about them.
Not true.
But
oh, goodness.
In the triple jump, because at least it was a world record, it was Venezuela's Julimar Rojas.
Yes.
Her jumps, so she jumped well the whole time.
Yeah.
And it was clear that she was doing something special that day. But the triple jump is just such a brutal thing to watch because you have to jump as hard as you can on one leg 3 times in a row. You're switching legs, but it just looks and of course is so painful. Many injuries. Triple jumpers often don't last that long because they end up hurt a lot.
I didn't realize that.
Yes.
What I appreciated about Roja was that she was able to rally the people that were there, the few handful, I don't know how many people ended up being in the stadium.
All 7 people in the stadium actually were cheering
she was
for her.
She was amped up. She was getting them all to clap for her, and I wonder what it would have been like if she would have had a stadium full of people.
You never know.
Because it looks to me that Roja feeds off of the energy of the crowd.
And she definitely contributed to, if not created the energy for them by that jump. And so
and
lots
all of
of
us
great
at
jumping.
home watching on TV.
Yes. So new triple jump world record for the women by Rojas from Venezuela.
Allison Felix got a different type of record, and that is medal count record in track and field. She has now got the total amount of 11 Olympic medals. So
That's
congratulations to Allison Felix. You all know how much I love her. We've talked about it on the show before, but I've had the privilege of meeting Allison Felix, and she is as nice in real life as she seems on television.
Especially courteous, given how many times Andy said "I love you" to her face, and she just smiled the whole time.
I just thought it in my head.
Along.
I didn't say it out loud, but I do certainly.
It slipped out a few times. All right, so in the races then, let's break down the results of the events we didn't yet get to, that hadn't happened yet last time around. And as it were, things just kept getting better and better as the games went on. So, Andy, I'll let you talk about this one. I know how excited you are about the women's 800 meter.
History happening in Tokyo with a thing Mo. And
actually, history happened. Because it's only in the past. History has to be in the past.
But we're living it again now
because
it was just so wonderful. I get it, Zach. You're ruining my moment talking about one of my favorite performances of the entire Olympic Games, which was a thing Mo winning for the U.S. the 800-meter gold, which was the first gold for the U.S. in 53 years.
Yep. So awesome. And how many of you knew with confidence because we told you that a thing Mo was going to win that race?
I mean, I knew it going in, but there's always the chance, because in a championship race, you just never really know what's going to happen. There are plenty of upsets that do happen, but it was American record. So not only did she win the gold, but she also earned a very fast record, which was held by Ajay Wilson previously in 155.6, and she ran Mo ran 155.21.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And was the first of 2 19-year-olds to cross the line before anyone else of any age.
Yeah, Keely Hodgkinson was second for Great Britain. Another, what I love what the announcers say, the youngsters.
Teenage sensations.
The teenage sensations, yeah. So that was a really impressive finish, and that was not quite as expected.
No, not at all. Yeah, not at all. She's having a great season. It was no surprise that she was in the mix, but there were some talented athletes in that field. So
in fact, I think a lot of people from Great Britain, and from what I've read, would have favorited Jemariki.
Oh, come now.
No? Okay.
I don't know. I'm not in Great Britain, and I don't know very many British people, but it was still impressive.
And then the person who got me almost crying was Raven Rogers.
Come from behind
I mean, if the race wasn't already amazing by Mo just dominating, getting that record, and I mean, in 33 years, the U.S. women in the 800 haven't seen a medal. So she broke that drought, but that wasn't all. Then we have Raven Rogers coming from way behind, gobbling her competition up until the line where she won the bronze medal.
And it was severely impressive because in the 800, to kick at all is something. To kick at the Olympic final and outkick all of those really fast athletes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so Raven Rogers, she got a few well-ups of tears in my eyes.
Welling up. So rounding out the top 5, Gemma Reekie of Great Britain.
Yes.
Which may have been, according to Andy, Britain's favored daughter in this event.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Let me know.
Either way, she's also been having a stellar season and would have had that bronze medal if not for Raven Rogers' crazy finish. Not even a tenth of a second behind, so it was very, very tight. And then in 5th was Shunyu Wang of China. Now, for the men's 800 meter, it was not quite as exciting for us.
Well, Team USA was not quite as present in this. We did have Clayton Murphy in this race, but it was not a great one for him.
Not at all, which is no surprise because all of his international races this season were not great ones for him.
Don't say that. It's so harsh.
It is 100%
because
true.
He's also a medalist at the Olympics.
He has struggled
previously.
this summer. And so when you see the guy struggle all summer and then he gets to the Olympic final, okay, he's in a good spot.
Yeah.
And then the race just was beyond him. But that said, it wasn't exciting for us. It was very exciting for the gold medalist Emmanuel Kerr for 2 reasons. 1, because he won the gold medal in the 800 meters. 2, because his first event of the games was the 400 meters, but he false started and was disqualified out of the preliminary rounds. And so as a consequence, this guy's coming into the 800 final with a chip on his shoulder and a point to prove, and he proved it. And it was not easy, but he did.
No, not at all. So Kerr didn't, though, take any kind of dominance until the last 100 of this race. It was Peter Boll who took it out.
Yep.
And, I mean, Kenya did end up going 1-2 in this event, but we didn't really know. Like, there wasn't, like, a strong, obvious person who was going to win this race. It was pretty open.
Fight through the line was definitely something. So it was Ferguson Rodich, who then of Kenya took 2nd in silver medal, and Patrick Dobek of Poland.
Yeah.
Which, again, is no surprise because he's been racing very well at the international level this season. So to see him put it together there, too, really cool. And he was thrilled. Awesome
Yes,
to
he
see
was.
the excitement after that race. Incredible. And then 4th and 5th, Peter Boll of Australia and Adrian Ben of Spain. Excellent stuff.
Now, the women's 3,000 meter steeplechase had its drama and had its upsets.
Oh, yeah.
And, some happiness for Team USA and some sadness for Team USA. Both.
I'm not sad at all. You got to be happy with medals.
Oh, for certain. And for Courtney Frerichs, you've heard me talk about her before because I feel that we've had a very strong women's steeplechase field, and sometimes the media likes to focus on one person. And Emma Coburn is worthy of our notice. She's worthy of our fandom, but so is Courtney Frerichs as the American record holder. And we've said this like in our preview, like she is a woman who is up there mixing it with times that are just as good as some of the best in the world. So that being said, Courtney has, I heard on a previous podcast, struggled with some confidence. And she's been going to a sports psychologist, and she's obviously overcome that issue because she ran so bravely and confidently in this race. So bold. She got herself in the mix, but then she ended up taking the lead with 800 meters to go.
Yeah, early. And not just took the lead, she just decided she was going to go all out at that moment. And no one knew what to do about it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
She just ran away from everyone. And then it was very clear that Chemutai of Uganda was like, she's getting really far ahead. I should chase her a bit. But couldn't keep up until she did reel Frerichs back in. And ultimately it was Chemutai who claimed the gold for Uganda over Courtney Frerichs in the silver medal spot for USA.
And that's exactly what she needed to do to medal. So she executed her race so well. But I think at this stage, at this level, which she has been at before, as you know, in 2017 for the World Championships, Emma Coburn and Courtney Frerichs both medaled. And so she's no stranger to these kind of races. But when you get into these moments where like you take the lead in these kind of events, I'm sure that had to have been thought out a million times over in her head before she did it in real life.
So here's an interesting little, and I have no idea if this is what she was thinking at the time, but in working with athletes in the past, who have struggled with confidence, one of the things that I have advised them, and this doesn't come from me, this is a common thing you'll hear coaches talk about, is you get the athlete to have a secret, something they're going to do in the race that nobody else knows, and that they're going to do preferably before everyone else makes their choices. So like you're going to do something in the race, you have a secret that nobody else has, and it gives you this kind of confidence of like, I know something you don't know, and I'm going to do something that will surprise you. And she did this thing where it's like, I wonder if she made the move then because that would surprise people and because she was in complete control rather than letting someone else be in control. And if she needed that for her confidence or not, I have no idea. But she definitely made it work, and that was awesome.
So third, Hyven Kinyang from Kenya, and she took the bronze then. So we have Uganda for the gold, USA for the silver, and Kenya for the bronze.
And rounding out the top five were Makiti Zabebe of Ethiopia and Geisa Kraus of Germany. Excellent. And, of course, the Americans had two others in the final. Three women in the final. Excellent work there. And 12th was Val Constein. And Emma Coburn actually ended up getting disqualified. She did finish the race, but she got disqualified because she stumbled at one point in the race and stepped on the infield and back out. And it didn't aid her in any sense. Clearly, it wasn't on purpose. But the rule is, if unless someone bumps you, like if you're pushed into the infield, but if it's on your own, then you get it's a DQ.
Then I say that's like super sad for Emma Coburn, and she has been working so hard and showing us some great fitness and showing great results even at these events that she's been able to do. So it was sad to see her have a difficult day.
Yeah, I'm despite the fact that I may want to see someone else better than another person, I never want to see someone do badly. Like you don't wish harm on an athlete, especially, these times, like they go through some rough stuff at times here, and we'll get to a few of those rough things here even more in a moment. So for the men's 5,000 meter, an exciting event and always a fun one to watch, especially just depending on what the strategy ends up being.
So much
this
strategy.
one was an uncommon race. So the men's 5,000 is usually a kind of sit and kick type of race, not always as extreme as like the 1,500 can be. But in this case, it was not at all. And it was the world record holder, Kipchoge, who himself made it a very blazing fast, challenging race. And there were a few others contributing to that as well. But as a consequence, Kipchoge, who basically just said, okay, you people don't think I'm in good enough shape, let me show you the kind of shape I'm in. And he made everyone chase him. And they did well, but just not quite enough. So Kipchoge did take the gold.
Kipchoge train, that's what I heard somebody say. Like he led this train of men and it strung out because it was such an aggressive pace. But Paul Chalemo held on to that train.
And no denying that he could. There's absolutely no denying that he could do it. But of course, he had to run blazing fast just to hang on, which means when that happens, you run the kicks out of these, crazy kickers. And that's exactly the strategy Kipchoge had. Clearly, he did not want to have to mess with those kickers, and he didn't have to mess with them because nobody had the crazy lightning fast kick that you often see in this event. So as a consequence, it was like this struggle fest for the last lap as everyone's like clawing for every meter. It was incredible.
You could see it like all over their faces. Oh, yeah. It was
especially Chalemo's face. Yeah. You can always see the struggle on his face, but wow, he was grinding. It was incredible.
His tagline, like, go hard or suffer the rest of your life. I think he lived his motto to the extreme for this one because he gave every single ounce of energy he had on that track. In fact, if you I mean, if you watch any of the recaps or anything, you're going to see him diving over the line, and it's like a face plant down into the track after he finishes.
They keep calling it a dive. He wasn't diving. He just simply fell because he was done. He had given 100% of everything
too.
And just went
his whole body was
across
leaning
the
over.
line. Yeah.
It was quite impressive, and he's the man who wanted it more in that moment.
And where did he finish? Bronze medal for USA,
medal.
Paul Chalemo. It was awesome.
So this is a fun fact. Paul Chalemo is the first American to win 2 medals in the men's 5,000.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
I think it's an incredible stat.
That is, absolutely is. So this is, as Andy's saying, this is his second Olympic medal in the 5,000. And he even said, like, at one point in some follow-up stuff, that this has not been the year of all years for him. So to really achieve at the highest level like this still is, he was very pleased.
And he did it in honor of his brother who passed away unexpectedly. And he had to actually go and travel. And it was an upset to his training to be able, to have to grieve. I mean, that's a physical, emotional, mental toll on a person. And for him to come back and do this in his brother's honor was a very special thing.
Absolutely that. Now, there's always this slight question mark. And if you watched the race, you know what I'm talking about. Nearing the final 200 meters, there was a little bit of kind of movement right in front of Chalemo, and it slowed him way down. Someone kind of cut him off. And the question has been fielded, thanks to Josh Moddert for first suggesting it to me because I hadn't seen the race yet. If that momentum interruption hadn't have happened, would he have been able to, because he only finished a second behind. Yeah. Would he have had just a little bit more when it counted in the end there?
There was a ton of jostling in this race. In fact, Paul Chalemo was pushed off the track.
Pushed right off the track into the infield.
Off the track. There was all kinds of drama that happened in this race. Yep. And someone had said that Paul Chalemo is the most entertaining athlete to watch because he's always in it. Like, he's just in it. And I don't know why, but these races for the 5,000 always seem to be more aggressive, don't you think?
And Paul Chalemo's not passive and he's not subtle. So this concept of being in it, he's in the race, but he's also very present to the other athletes. He's saying things, he's interacting with them, not always pleasantly. He gets very frustrated when they're bumping him, and he just exerts that emotion externally. So it's always fascinating to watch him because he's not a subtle racer. Mm-hmm.
Well, not subtle. Well, if he would have been subtle, he wouldn't have won bronze.
That's the truth. Now, we've been talking so much about gold and bronze, but silver went to Canada's Mohamed of Bowerman Track Club, which after what was, in his mind, a disappointing 10,000 meter, he came back in the 5,000, which is his stronger event, so that makes sense, but came back for a silver medal in 12:58. So Cheptegei won the race in 12:58. Mohamed, 12:58 for second. Paul Chalemo, 12:59 for third. And only like a few hundredths ahead of fourth place, which was Kenya's Nicholas Kimeli in 12:59 as well.
Yeah, very exciting stuff.
Yeah.
And Mohamed was way behind. I wanted to put this out there too because I want to set the stage for you all because he was like in fifth coming around the corner. And I know that's
not way behind.
I don't, but it like was strung out. So he had to actually like pass each person. And then he ended up passing Paul Chalemo on the inside.
Yep.
How far from the finish? I mean, not far from the finish. So anyway, Mohamed had a great race. I was pretty impressed.
He did. He was doing the duck and weave in that final 100. It was really good stuff. And then fifth place, rounding out top five, was Jacob Kiplimo of Uganda, the bronze medalist from the 10,000. So excellent stuff. A third and a fifth at the Olympics when you're 20 years old. He's 20 years old. That's not bad. Not bad. So the United States was present in the race and other places as well. Grant Fisher was 9th and Woody Kincaid was 14th.
Mm-hmm. Now the women's 1,500 meter run was fast. Olympic record fast. Now Gabby Stafford took it out, and it was just one of those races that you knew right away it was going to be exciting. And Fifth Kipchoge flipped the script on Sifan Hassan. Sifan usually sits way back, but Sifan didn't sit back for very long in this one. She started out like her normal in the back, but then she moved up fairly quickly. And Faith Kipchoge just moved with her on her shoulder and stayed right there on her shoulder, which is something that Sifan Hassan usually does.
Yeah. So I have a theory about this.
Okay.
Because it was clear Sifan Hassan was afraid of Faith Kipchoge. She was nervous about her. I don't think Hassan was afraid in the same way in any of the other races, but for the 1500, and part of it's because Kipchoge has beaten Sifan a bit, a fair bit.
But Gaudet took her record.
Yeah, but in a race head-to-head,
Yeah,
things hadn't
true.
happened. And so it's not only that, but Kipchoge is just deadly, and her kick is incredible, and she can do it off of really fast paces. So for Hassan, she only had one option. She can't let Kipchoge make the choices in the race. She can't let her decide the race. So she did the one thing that she thought played to her strengths as a stronger, longer distance athlete. She just went as hard as she could, as long as she could.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't work.
It didn't work this time around because her competition was so severe. I mean, we have a group of women who are some of the fastest that have ever lived. And I think that made for a very exciting race for all of us to watch, but it did not to work to Sifan Hassan's advantage because it wasn't tactical in the same way. It was not a sit and kick type of situation. It was fast from the start. And Laura Muir ended up hauling, okay? Like, if you haven't seen a clip, I'm going to link to it because we have the race for you to watch. So I'll be linking to that. But Laura Muir making British history, earning a record for Great Britain in the 1500 meter run and passing Sifan Hassan in the final straightaway.
Listen, we all knew Laura Muir was deadly in this event. She has shown across all levels that she is a competitor. Mm-hmm. And when it came down to it, the degree of grit that woman possesses when she's racing is so high. She just okay, this is the way I would portray it. Angela Duckworth is the author of the book Grit. I think she should be reaching out to Laura Muir and saying, for the next printing of my book, I would like to be your face when you're racing on the cover of the book because you are the epitome of grit.
Yeah.
That is the truth. So she just kicked and kicked. And what it was is Sifan Hassan took the race out and just, or not took it out, but she eventually took over and just was hammering and hammering. And Faith Kipchoge, with, where exactly did she pass her? About a lap to go, went around her and then just put the pedal down so hard, you could just like see the despair in Hassan's face. But Laura Muir just went with Kipchoge when she went around Sifan Hassan, and so she just kept trailing. And it's like, when is she going to slow down? And she didn't.
Yeah,
it was amazing, and just that grind in her face, like teeth clenched, and it was so good.
She said in a social media post that she said she couldn't believe it that she was able to do this. And the thing is like the rest of us, we could believe it because she has been consistently one of the best in the world. She's always there, right there. Sometimes she's getting the medal, sometimes she's winning the races, sometimes she's not, but she's always at the top and consistently there. So I am happy for Laura Muir that she was able to seize her medal and her victory and her record at the Olympic Games.
And that puts Sifan Hassan in third for her second medal of the Games, and a not too shabby time as well. By the way, Faith Kipchoge ran that new Olympic record, 3:53 in the 1500. Yowza. As well as an African record. And then Laura Muir and a new British record, 3:54.5. Wow. Yep. These are good things.
So Ellie Perrier St. Pierre, she didn't have the race of her life, but I heard that there was maybe some things going on in between, not feeling the best.
Did someone stab her in the ribs before? Now you can't race? No.
No, just had some injury stuff, I think I heard.
I got no idea what you're talking about.
Wasn't feeling great. Anyway,
okay.
And then Corey McGee running 4:05. But these aren't slow times. So, like, Ellie got 4:01, and then Corey ran 4:05. So these were not slow times. And it's just difficult when you race a field that's the best that's ever lived in the history of time. to
Yeah.
to show that a 4:01 is still fast among them. But yeah, 10th place for Ellie Preer, 12th for Corey and McGee.
Certainly a bit of that. And by the way, rounding out the top 5 in the race, since we've been doing that in the others,
Yeah.
4th place was Ferwani Gebreziabher, and that's of Ethiopia. And 5th place was Gabby DeBois Stafford of Canada,
Who looked very strong too.
She's always in these races, but when that kick came down,
Yeah. It was a nasty kick. Speaking of nasty, this is a different kind of nasty. Nasty conditions.
What a transition.
For
Speaking of nasty.
the women's marathon.
Oh man. Okay, so you
Oh,
remember how they moved the marathon to Sapporo in like northern Japan to, have better weather?
It wasn't.
I don't understand why anyone thinks that they can make choices months in advance about weather and somehow believe that they're going to get their will.
Give the best chance of
Yeah, okay,
having
all
decent
right.
weather, and it didn't turn out to be a good
Quite
chance.
the opposite. It was worse weather in
I don't think it was
Sapporo
worse.
than
I
it
was
was.
about to say.
Maybe
86 degrees. So this is a marathon, folks.
I've
We
run a
love
marathon
to see
in
like
that. It's
50s.
not good.
That would be ideal.
40s. Yeah.
86, not so much. And 88 women started the race, and only how many finished? I
I don't know exactly how many finished. We don't have it written here, but it was not many.
No. So this race went out pretty slow, and as you would imagine, that meant that they were all bunched together. So there was 46 women within 2 seconds of one another through the 10K. And that was in.
Sounds like a fun little party.
So there was a lot of jostling going on. It was difficult
Especially
for people
for the
to grab
aid
their
stations,
grab their ice and things that were provided. So there was ice provided for the athletes in these marathons. If you didn't get a chance to watch, it was made for entertaining television. They did like slow-mo shots of people like putting it on their head and like balancing it for a minute and putting it down their shirt, stuffing it in their bra.
They had, thanks for that, Andy. One of the images, one of the slow motion shots was one of the Kenyan women who was trying to put the ice bag on her head and then like let go of it and just try to hope that it would stay there. And she kept doing that where she slide it up on top of her head and then like put her arms down and keep running. And it kept falling down. But it was,
of course, right?
made, as Andy said, made us entertained at their suffering and expense.
Oh. Well, it was down to only 25 women come to 15K, 13 by 20K, halfway.
The pack, not the entire race. The
pack. Sorry, that was a good clarification. Halfway went through in 1:15.14, and the pack was down to 10.
And that is slow, folks. A 1:15 half for the women's Olympic marathon is slow. So that tells you
it's not actually slow
because
that's actually fast, but it's slow for the
for
Olympic marathon.
the women's Olympic marathon. So that tells you how extreme those conditions were and the toll they were taking.
Yeah, so the pack was down to 10, including Seidel and Kipchoge of the USA. Were both still hanging in there. 10 women down to it.
Not bad.
So then at the 29th kilometer, which sounds kind of random, but that's
just when she did it.
Ruth Chepngetich of Kenya, she dropped out.
Well,
actually, she fell off the pack, and then she dropped out at 20 miles.
And so when you have one of the big threats out of the race, and it's already a very thin pack, it's just kind of one of those things. It's like you're counting heads. How many are still left? How many do I have to be able to beat to get these medals? Yeah.
So with 9K to go, there were only 5 left,
and that's a good spot to be.
Molly Seidel, and then Salpeter were doing most of the work at this point. So Kosgei decided to start doing some of the work with 5,000 meters to go, and Salpeter tried to go with Kosgei and Chepchirchir when Molly actually separated from that group. And when she did that, I think she might have exerted herself a little too much because they really put on the heat at that point. And then when Molly, because she was reeling her in, she ended up passing her, and that's when Salpeter stopped. She started walking.
At that point, she's going backwards and she's out of the medal spot. But it was interesting because Seidel looked like she was out. And at one point, I turned to Andy when we were watching. I said, "Oh man, Seidel's out." But then Salpeter started fading off almost immediately after that, and just not quite as quickly initially. And something clearly in Seidel's mind was like, I still can beat her. And all she had to do was beat her for the medal. And so she just stayed there for a bit and then started gaining again on saltpeter, and it was like, wow, that doesn't happen that late in a race when you're feeling that badly.
To rally like that at the late stages when you know she can't be feeling good.
What a run.
It was such a difficult, race to run, and then to have to make that kind of decision in the late stages, but then it broke saltpeter mentally, I'm sure, when she passed her and then, started walking. So with a push at the 40K mark, Perez Chepchirchir of Kenya then overtook Kosgei to win the Olympic marathon in 2:27:20.
What a negative split.
That was a serious negative split, which is not something that you often... Is that something you would see at this kind of event?
You do.
It always starts slow.
You do.
Oh,
it's
you're
just
right.
Usually...
It would, in the Olympic marathon, it does start out quite conservative because, again, we've mentioned this before, but there's no rabbits. There's no men in the race. So the women that are up front, they're not really wanting to take the lead, so to speak. So that's one of the reasons why there would be a negative split there as well.
There also aren't any time bonuses
for
finishing at a certain time.
Gotcha.
So the time does not matter at all to them.
So it's very emotional for many of us watching who are big fans of Molly. He's just seeing her say, yes, yes, as she was crossing the line, knowing that she had earned a medal at the Olympic Games in her third ever marathon.
That was something. Yep.
Third ever marathon. Now, Seidel's bronze is the first Olympic marathon medal for the American women since Dina Castor won bronze in Athens in 2004.
So American women do some decent marathoning with a few medals and a few showings. That's not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
Good. So that year 5 then rounded out. 4th place was Rosa Derehe of Ethiopia, and 5th place was Volha Mazuronek of Belarus. What is this? Belarus or Bulgaria or something of that nature. And it was Sally Kipchoge. She ended up in 17th for the United States. Yeah. And
she did she ran really strong. I think through 90 minutes, she was still in the lead pack. So it wasn't till in the late stages of the race that she started to drift back a bit. And then Alefine Tulimak, she did not finish this race. She was experiencing some severe hip pain. So that was a very difficult way to end this Olympic Games for her. But she has been an inspiration through this whole process to women everywhere. And we appreciate her as the trials champion and look forward to more for Alefine.
And she, among many other women who did not or were not able to finish that race, was really something. Well, that didn't end the day, though, for women's distance running, because we also then had the 10,000-meter final, which was not
so
long
unusual.
after.
So unusual to have these events on the same day. That does not usually happen. Now, Helen Obiri and Letesenbet Gidey did lead the race for this 10,000-meter run.
We got to back up. We got to set this up a little bit more, because this was the world record holder duo, right? So this duel, I should say. This was Sifan Hassan and Letesenbet Gidey, and both of them having broken the world record this summer. But also, this was Sifan Hassan's, let's count them. She ran 3 1,500 meters, 2 5,000s. So this is her 6th race in 10 days, 9 days. And you just got to wonder, it begs the question, can a person do this? Is it possible to even run? And the last one being the longest one, which is usually not your preference if you could choose. So that's the setup here. Gidey had not run a single race. This was her only run for the Olympics. She's fresh. She's the one who holds the world record in both the 5,000 and 10,000. And it's Hassan coming off of a recent defeat to Faith Kipyegon in the 1,500. And you're just wondering, had she overexerted herself? Did she have anything left? That sets you up for what happened in the women's 10,000.
All right, so I'll start that again. Helen Obiri and Letesenbet Gidey led the race, and they did the pacemaking. Both of them, side by side, running next to one another, and Sifan just stayed pretty comfy.
Just hung out behind them. And by saying they, really it was Gidey. Gidey did 90% of the work.
Yeah, and because Helen Obiri wasn't able to stay in it as long as Ntezebet Gide, so that's one of the reasons why. With 8 laps, Sifan is in third. Sifan is the first woman to win 3 distance medals.
Did you just say it like that?
I mean, doesn't everyone know?
Well, maybe, but let me just articulate here, since you now know what the result is if you didn't before. Sifan Hassan won the race, but I think that 100% of the reason why she won is because Gide made a bad decision late in the race. She gave Hassan the victory because she intentionally slowed down. The pace was hot. She was doing it on purpose, but she started to realize it's also kind of hard for me, and I'm the only one here doing the work, and she panicked. And so she turned to, and at the time, I don't remember who was right behind her. It was Obiri who was right behind her at the time. She was trying to get Obiri to go by her and take the lead and keep that
it was
that quick pace
point
up. No, it wasn't. Not yet. And so Obiri wouldn't do it. Nobody should have done it in that moment. It was clear and obvious that Gide was struggling, holding that really hard pace, and was concerned that she wouldn't have it late in the race. And she blew the only strategy that was available to her. Sifan Hassan had run 5 races at the Olympic level in the last several days. She was tired. It doesn't matter what she's capable of doing. Her legs are tired. And Gide had that race won if she would have run as hard as she possibly could as long as possible. And she panicked.
You feel frustrated about this.
I'm not frustrated. I just think more power to Sifan Hassan for taking full advantage of that bad tactical error when she blew their lights out in the final kick.
I think it was a very difficult thing, and I don't know what the solution is, except for that, it's a championship race, and it's a bummer when they don't get to have, pacers and things like that. But no one wants to lead the race unless it is a strategy and they have decided that is exactly what they want to do. Because like Zach said, when it sets in, this is a tough pace on a really tough, humid, hot day. Yeah. I don't want to be doing this anymore. Why isn't anyone else doing the work? Those kind of thoughts, if it wasn't the pre-plan, are going to really take a toll on you mentally. And then, of course, give up the tactic.
But then to show your weakness to your competitor, you'd be like, hey, how about you take over for a bit? Like,
I think she's irritated.
No.
I think she's irritated that she was having to do all the work.
But of course, she was always going to have to do all the work. There was not a chance in any scenario that Sifan Hassan wasn't going to simply wait until the very end. Her legs were tired. Well, anyway, so what ends up happening is Sifan Hassan wins the race in glorious fashion. But I tell you what, her kick was amazing, but she didn't really break away from second place. Silver medal from Kalkidan Gazekeni, if I can say that right, of Bahrain, who held with her the entire way through the kick. Just couldn't quite muster a little bit
extra. And if you're going to say, which one was the race of their life, it would have been her. Because the way that she ran that race, she stuck her nose in it. She hung in there. She just, she looked like she was running a fair clip. For her, she looked like she was uncomfortable. She was outside of herself. But then
29:56 is not slow.
And then in the end, she was storming on Sifan. I mean, she was storming on her.
Yep, absolutely.
It was if there was more to that race than 10,000 meters, who knows? Because she was strong.
Yes.
And when she finished, she was excited, dancing around, grabbed her flag, was twirling as one might do if they have energy after a 10,000 meter victory. But Sifan, who is the gold medalist, the one who won the race, was needed medical attention.
Yes. Well, when you just finished running, what was she up to at that point? 25,000 meters of Olympic racing? Yeah. You would need medical attention. She just went over to the sideline and they just started dousing her in ice, and she took off her shoes and just laid on the ground.
Yeah.
That was it. I've got nothing left. But you don't need anything left. You just won 3 Olympic medals in not very many days.
Which was the most amount of distance medals for a woman to ever win at the Olympic Games. And Genzebe Dibaba, she won gold and bronze at the 2015 World Championships. And that's pretty much the closest we've seen to this kind of dominance in distance running.
Yeah, aside from Stefan's double gold in 2019.
Yeah.
So it's just basically like, I'm the one to beat. And that was really incredible. Okay, so Letezimet Gede did hold on for third. She got a bronze medal and was about 5 seconds behind. It wasn't quite, they didn't bury her by any means. And then in fourth was Helen Obiri of Kenya. And in fifth was Francine Niyonsaba of Burundi.
I just say that Helen Obiri was an impressive one too, because she had dropped off from that group of women and she still really ran a tough race to finish fourth. And I think at this level, when you think I'm a medal contender and you're not there at medal contending position in the final stages of a race, I think it's easy for some of those champion type to back off more, or like to not really pursue the final efforts. And she did that by, getting fourth place. And so I thought that was a valiant run there by Obiri.
Absolutely was. So the Americans still showed up tough and, at the very least, finished near each other in kind of like a patriotic fashion as all these USA women started running through the finish line together. Emily Sisson was in 10th place, and then Carissa and Alicia in 12th and 13th.
Mm-hmm. And now this is, like we've mentioned before, this is so fast. Like, the women in this day and age are so incredibly fast. So when we saw Emily Sisson take that U.S. trials victory and thinking like, she's just crushed everybody, and thinking like, okay, is she gonna medal at this Olympics?
And over a minute behind.
But
wow.
That just goes to show, like, if we're trying to see, like, put in perspective how amazing these times are, like, look at that, because she is a champion. She is one of the best in the world. She's 10th in the entire world. Mm-hmm. But to know that there is so much going on in women's running right now, and the levels that we are seeing are unprecedented.
Incredible stuff. Well, that brings us on to the men's 1,500 meter, which in many people's opinions in distance running circles is kind of like the crown jewel. It always tends to be like right very nearly the end. So it feels like this kind of like penultimate experience before they wrap things up with the marathon.
Are you sure it's because one of your favorite runners is in this race?
Well, so I was very excited. I think I mentioned, didn't I, last week that this was going to be the race that I was the most excited and most anticipation? Well, it did not disappoint me, at least. It certainly may have disappointed some. As you may know, Matthew Centrowitz did not make the final, which was a bummer. So I didn't get to see what I thought would be a really fascinating, like, how does the race unfold in terms of what he would do. But Cole Hocker of the United States did make the final, so it was very exciting to see that. He had to run a personal best of nearly 2 seconds in the semifinal just to make it to the final, which is something, not terribly surprising when in the heat, Abel Kipsang of Kenya ran a new Olympic record in a semifinal in 3:31, which was, wow, very fast. And by the way, he bested Noah Ngeni's Olympic record, and Noah Ngeni would be the world record holder in like everything if he didn't have to race Hicham El Garouche every time he made a world record attempt.
Good point.
And so there's something to that. All right, so in the final, then, as things go, Timothy Chariot clearly told everyone that he was going to do exactly what he always does, which is make it a fast race and then force you to just have to be able to hold on and see if you can manage it. Mm-hmm. But you all know, like we do, that this field is not shy about running fast and definitely can manage it. So he did not burn the legs off these other runners as he was hoping he would. Now, certainly some, but not enough and not early enough. So as the race is unfolding, you've got the likes of Stewie McSwain mixing it up there. Jakob Ingebrigtsen's in the race. And, of course, there are several others that are just kind of holding right in that pattern.
And Oliver Hoare
good
early
stuff.
on.
Ollie Hoare was in there. Yeah, great things. Okay, so how did it unfold? Rounding the final turn, it was Jakob Ingebrigtsen on Chariot's shoulder, comes around him to the home straight, and then blazes down the final stretch and just dominated everyone. And I was cheering, standing on my feet. It was so exciting. That dude finished the race, and he was like thrilled and all the energies and such. So at 20 years old, Jakob Ingebrigtsen for the gold medal. Wow. And apparently, we hear this from the announcers as we're watching the race. Ingebrigtsen and Chariot have raced each other prior to this one like 12 times. And guess who won the most of those races?
Chariot.
Chariot won all of them. Ingebrigtsen had never beaten Chariot before until this Olympic final. It was really incredible and very exciting
and
stuff.
The sportsmanship, again, I want to bring it back to the sportsmanship in this running community and culture that we love so much. But yeah, Chariot gave Jakob a bracelet that was his own, like from his wrist. He gave Jakob his bracelet as a congratulatory present.
That's really wow. That's really something. I bet that's super special. A lot of honor established, much dignity. I really enjoy seeing things like that. It's very exciting. Well, so we mentioned there were some really crazy things going on there. It ended up being in several final kicks. Ended up being Jakob Ingebrigtsen, Timothy Chariot, and then Josh Kerr of Great Britain, who trains in the United States. He runs for a Brooks team out of Seattle. And his kick, so if you were following any of this stuff very, very closely, you would have heard people talking about Josh Kerr prior to the Olympics about how good his kick was. And everyone just kept saying, if it comes down to it, this guy might have it. And I just kind of I wasn't totally discounting all of it, but it's like, yeah, it's the 1500. They're all good kickers. Yeah. They've all got a great kick. But not quite as great as Josh Kerr's. Yeah. So Ingebrigtsen had the head above everyone else. He made the first big surge, and he was out there. Josh Kerr had to come from quite a ways further back and was just flying through everyone to take that bronze medal. Yeah. It was really incredible. Of Great Britain. Very nicely done. This is his
first major medal, Zach.
Yeah, and he had to do it running 3:29 in the 1500. So not just an incredible run, but super fast, too. Oh, by the way, Ingebrigtsen ran a new Olympic record, which, all of these guys ran a new Olympic record. It was like the first 7 runners ran the Olympic record. Actually, it was 6, wasn't it? If we look at the numbers, it was the top 6 all ran under the previous Olympic record, which was set in the semifinal. So that is the fastest Olympic final ever. Clearly, by a long shot. Ingebrigtsen ran a new European record 3:28 to do it over Timothy Chariot's 3:29, Josh Kerr's 3:29, Abel Kipsang in 4th of Kenya in 3:29, and it wasn't until 5th, Adel Michal of Spain in 3:30.
Wow.
And that rounds out your top 5 in some of the crazy fastest times we've ever seen. Now, Cole Hocker was then 6th place, which is not bad, and especially not when you look at his time, 3:31 for another 2-second PR, and an impressive race for another youngster showing big.
And again, he was faster than the previous Olympic record.
Right, which, so when you got to do it, you got to do it, and
this
guy can do it.
In every heat?
Minus the first one. His prelim heat was not a PR, but then the semifinal was, and the final was. Yep.
And then let's just remember that he's had like the longest season ever.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Right?
This NCAA's, when was that? Like months ago?
Yeah. This also marks, which is kind of a weird thing to say, the worst finish he's ever had in a championship race since his career began. And 6th place in the Olympic finals, not bad to call it your worst finish ever in a championship. That's cool.
That's crazy. So he's improved 4 seconds within the Olympic Games to land him in that 6th place spot. So congratulations to Cole Hocker.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the others that we've been following so closely is, of course, Ollie Hoare, who of Australia runs for the On Athletics Club in the U.S. He finished in 11th place, 3:35, in what was, the crazy fastest 1,500-meter final ever. Nice.
It was. Now the men's marathon, the much anticipated final running event on the schedule at the Tokyo Olympic Games, and it was kind of bizarre. Don't you think, Zach?
What an interesting lead up. It was kind of bizarre. I'm just curious how you're going to explain that.
Because there was such early dropouts for this race, like people that...
like 10K into the race.
10K.
And handfuls of really good marathoners dropping out.
It was so... Lots of cramping, just a very interesting Olympic marathon. And of course, because of these conditions and what was going down early in the race, having it be slow and tactical, of course, was how slow the race was. And that does happen, I understand, especially when we get to championship level, but I just thought it was it just kind of had a bizarre feel.
Yeah, but there's something. So the women marathoners, the top two at least, ran 10 minutes slower than their personal best marathons. I mean, Bridget Koskei ran like 15 minutes slower, but so 10 minutes plus slower. In the men's race, the margin was not that wide. So they were going a little bit closer to maximum, and you could see it in the early carnage, just how many people were dropping out, how quickly. It was tough to watch. For them to experience.
I guess I got that wrong then. It was going out faster, but more people were dropping. And the times, like you said, it was more narrow, but it was still really slow come the end.
Yeah.
And the negative split by Kipchoge was very large, but we're going to get to that in a second.
Yeah, so Elliot Kipchoge did, in fact, defend the title, giving him 2 gold medals in the marathon, which is by itself a rare feat. Just the longevity of his marathoning prowess is amazing. But, this was interesting for me because I did not watch that race thinking he was the guy to beat as much as thinking if he's got it, he's going to be tough to beat. But there's just so many good marathoners right now, and he has not looked in his unbeatable form in the last 12 plus months. And so
but he wanted to remind you.
Well, clearly he was responding directly to my criticisms. But what it amounts to is in a race like that, of course, for the marathon in general, but in a race like that in those conditions and such, it can be anybody. It can be anybody who has it on the right day, who's able to endure those conditions. And when it came right down to it, not many people could handle it. And so Kipchoge had the leg up, and when he made his move, which he does decisively and everyone hates it, he does things like 14, 20-something 5K to just kind of burn the legs off anyone who wants to chase him, and nobody could.
Nope.
Nobody did.
And he won by the biggest margin since Frank Shorter's victory in 1972, winning by 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Nicely done.
And I did mention that Elliot's second half of the race was pretty fast, 1:03:35.
Yeah, which on that day, wow, that's something.
And his 5K between 30K and 35K was 14:28, like Zach said, when he burned everybody off.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that.
14:28, towards the end.
Yeah. So the 3 medalists then: Elliot Kipchoge of Kenya, Abdi Nagy of Netherlands. We'll come back to that. And he was a minute 20 behind. And then only seconds behind him was Bashir Abdi of Belgium, and finishing in very nearly the same second. They were super close together. 4th place was Lawrence Sharono of Kenya, who, by the way, I was thinking Lawrence Sharono was one of the people to watch there. But what's most fascinating here is Nagy, as they're coming down the finish, last 200 meters, is turning around. Like, he's got more energy, but he's intentionally not accelerating. He's staying just a touch ahead of these guys, turning around to Bashir Abdi and waving him up, like, get up here, man. Because these guys were teammates.
Yeah.
He's trying to get him, like, just motivate him along.
Yeah. He's
turning around in an Olympic final marathon, like finishing. He's got 200 meters left, and these guys are right behind him. And he's like, some people would say, hey, dude, you should, not risk your medal here. Nope. He was doing everything he could.
They're more than training partners. They're really good friends. Like, I looked it up because I wanted to be sure. They're not listed on the same
Wikipedia says
team.
Really good friends, and underneath it, when you look up the word really good friends,
Instagram, social media tells all when it comes to...
Instagram says really good friends, and when you look under the post, it shows these two.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I looked it up because they weren't listed as official training partners, but they are training partners because they have like several.
I don't know what the story is
of
there.
Them running together. And he's like my boy. Like they're running together in these reels. So yeah, they run together.
I don't know what that means.
And
what you just said, but
teammate in one of his posts as well.
The point here is, in fact, it's actually all 3 because Elliot Kipchoge, Nagy, and Bashir Abdi are all teammates, or at least they train together in certain capacities with the NN running team. Nagy and Kipchoge are for sure both part of the NN running team. Bashir Abdi either was or is like just
training with them.
But either way, they're all teammates. And so they took the medals together.
Yeah.
It's really an exceptional
Really
thing.
cool.
And there was like a moment at the end where like Nagy grabbed Kipchoge and Bashir Abdi. Clearly Nagy was like he's like the group party guy because he just made it all fun for everyone. Grabbed them and they had like this group hug and it was kind of
really cool.
So rounding out the top 5, I mentioned Lawrence Sharono in 4th, finishing at almost the same time as Abdi. It was Ayad Lamdesem of Spain. And it was not that far behind him, still like 12 seconds further back. It was really incredible. What a close race. In 6th place was Japan's Shiroko Osako. And he was not far behind either. And so like at a race at this level, and these guys were like fairly tight together given the conditions, was kind of surprising. But things started to kind of stretch out.
Osako was chasing, like he was catching.
He looked like he was gaining. Yep, he looked like he was gaining.
He's pretty strong, and I think that it helped because as I obviously didn't have the full picture, I wasn't there, but to hear all the cheering, it sounded like a lot of the cheering was for Osako.
Of course, because he's the hometown guy. Okay, yeah. Well, that was cool. And then it kind of started stringing out further after that, and a lot of gaps between athletes. But 8th place was Galen Rupp of the United States. 29th was Jake Riley, and then 41st Abdi Abdurrahman. And with just lots of, as I mentioned, kind of lots of space. A lot of guys seeming to having to kind of run alone for a bit. And it was tough.
And I mean, 105 men started, only 76 finished. It was brutal out there.
Yeah.
Lots of dropping. Now, we've told you a lot of great
so why don't we end it with a bad story?
Well,
this is actually really funny.
It's not funny.
It's funny, but it's
like
terrible.
In a sick way. It's like funny in a sick way. Well, so we've had so many displays of like great sportsmanship, but here was one thing that was not so great. French marathoner Mourad Abdouni appeared to deliberately knock over an entire row of water, grabbing the last one for himself.
So we don't know.
This isn't the Hunger Games, guys.
Right? We don't know what he was trying to do here.
It looks very
but it's all on camera, so you can see it. His hand goes down like to grab a drink, right? And he just keeps running with his hand down, flattens the entire table of drinks until the last one and grabs it. Like, oh man, what a chump move. Who knows? We don't know if it's on purpose, but it clearly looks like it.
I'll let you decide for yourself,
right.
But I'm pretty certain it was on purpose. It looked very deliberate. And that was thanks to Todd Buckingham for sending me that video.
He pointed it out. Yes, thank you, Todd. So I do have to say, you got to wonder if it was on purpose. I'm just imagining in my head something was going on in the race, and he was like talking with someone else. He's just mad at this person. So he must have like gone right in front of them in the drink station and just knocked down all the drinks. Eat that, man.
Or maybe he was having some sort of like heat problem, like where he's just losing his marbles, like
who knows?
Oxygen deprivation because you're running marathon at a ridiculous pace, and then of course you have the heat, and then a little irritation. That's all it takes. And then you're like feeling like you're in the Hunger Games about to die. Take all the water for yourself.
So Andy, what is your big final reflections? We watched these Olympic Games, and with everything else surrounding it and going on that was crazy and wild and strange and abnormal, at the very least there were some exciting races, and we were very interested in all of that and enjoyed it immensely. But zoom it all the way out.
All right,
what's the one thing, the one takeaway?
Molly Seidel said that she stuck her nose where it didn't belong, and she wanted to see what she could do. I
disagree with her objective statement, though. Her nose absolutely belonged there.
Her nose did belong there. But I don't think, and I think that this is my big takeaway.
Okay,
we don't know we belong there until we're there. We're never going to believe it. If there's another level to be had in running, if there's another level to be had in anything in our lives, we don't know we belong there until we're just there. So that's my big takeaway, is that we have to put ourselves in opportunities, and we have to find that tension between not taking ourselves too seriously, because this is running and this is a sport and this is fun, but then also taking ourselves seriously in the way of saying, yes, I'm an athlete and I care about the goals that I have. So there's somewhere in there where we find opportunity that we plan for success, of course, by training well. Maybe that's your takeaway from this event is that you have fire in your belly to maybe try to get PRs or try to reach some kind of goal, whether that's I want to train to be able to run the distance of a marathon. That's a really big goal. Or maybe my goal is to get on the track for the first time in 20 years and try to find an opportunity to just see what I could do in a mile run. Shout out to our A to Z runners who did that, who are training for distance races and ended up getting PRs in the mile at the Magic of the Mile last week. There are so many things that we can do to try to put ourselves in a place where we're not sure we belong yet. So,
wise words, deep reflection. So if my one reflection then is largely that, and shared this with our athletes in a recent note, there seems to be the case that there are nearly unlimited paths to victory, to success. And so you look at a situation like this, and you clearly see different races and strategies that yield gold medals. You see different people accomplishing gold medals, people who live in different places, people who have different genes or genetic makeups, people who approach training in different kinds of ways, who train by themselves or train with teams, or all of these kinds of things. So there's this multiple paths to victory thing is always fascinating to me. There are certainly some common elements as runners, but when we look at what it takes for us to achieve success, and it's largely know the goal and then look at what I need right now to make myself reach that goal. And that's where there's no like single one answer there. And there's so many different things we have to be able to think about and try to implement in order to move that direction. And you hear all these stories of runners who, I was hurt and then this, or this up and then this down, or this down and then this up. And it's always fascinating to me. And that's one of the things I love about the Olympics. That's one of the things I love about any kind of the big competitions is what was the path that athlete took to that moment and through that moment. It's always interesting stuff. So in conclusion, if we will, naturally with all of these things, very exciting stuff going on, but we also always want to bring it back to reminding you of the work we're trying to do and why we're doing all the things here. And as it goes, always helping runners thrive as our goal and our mission. We're doing things like the podcast in interest of trying to provide information and ideas and encouragement and inspiration that help you thrive. We're writing articles and publishing on the website on AtoZrunning.com. We're sharing things, or at least Andi is, on social media. And I don't really know what she's sharing or why, but I think it's there to help you thrive. And beyond all of that, of course, we're also working directly with athletes, and it's one of the things we love the most about what we get to do. And we've got the coaching services, and we try to approach that in a few different ways, knowing that different athletes have different needs for things. So certainly there's the coaching, which is the hands-on, the full-on approach. But then we also offer we'll write personalized training plans, and you can call us up and we can talk and sort out what you need, and then we'll write a plan. And then we have this third option, and this is actually a relatively new establishment now, where if what you need is more just like, I need to talk to someone, get different set of eyes, different ears on my training or on my questions or on my situation right now. We also offer single consultations where you can simply just schedule a call and we'll make that happen as well. And hopefully, in all of those things and everything else in the work that we're doing, something at some point helps you thrive as a runner.
Mm-hmm. And if you love the Olympic Games and you're sad to see them done like we are, just remember that that's why we have the World of Running segment on this podcast every single week. You can get excited about running more than once every 4 years, if you can believe it. So every week on the World of Running, we bring to you results that happen in the world of running. You get to know some of these athletes that we have been talking about on this podcast today about their previous successes at Diamond League meets. Speaking of Diamond League, that's coming up soon too. We are going to be completing the Diamond League series around the world coming up in this month, and then is it the beginning of September too?
Concluding in September.
Yeah. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We loved connecting with you. Thanks for joining us for this 2-part of the Olympic results. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, hey, keep listening because we have more for you when it comes to results.